I never thought the sharpest pain of my life would come from the smell of pumpkin pie cooling in my own hands, while my daughter's laughter floated through a window that no longer welcomed me. My name is Elizabeth Hale, and at 72, I've learned how to keep my voice gentle even when my heart isn't. I'm the sort of woman who still folds grocery bags for reuse, who remembers birthdays without needing a calendar, who believes that love, no matter how bruised, should sound polite. People call it patience. Sometimes I think it's just habit. That night, the habit of patience led me to my daughter's window. The wind along the Asheville Ridge was sharp, carrying the smell of roasted turkey and chimney smoke from the sidewalk. I could see through the wide dining room glass of Marit's house, her laughter rising above the clatter of silverware. She was radiant in the amber earrings I'd given her years ago. Galen, her husband, poured wine while the children giggled over a bowl of mashed potatoes. The golden light inside made their faces soft and warm. I stood half hidden by the hedge, holding a pumpkin pie, still warm in its tin. I'd baked it that morning, out of habit again, just in case they changed their minds and asked me to come. Then Marette's voice carried through the window, smooth and certain. She doesn't even deserve the leftovers. The laughter that followed was thin, like something brittle breaking. Galen looked away. One of the children asked what she meant, and Merritt said nothing. Before raising her glass, the pie trembled in my hands. I didn't drop it. I just couldn't feel its warmth anymore. I turned from the window before anyone saw me, walking carefully down the slope toward my own side of the duplex. Snow had begun to fall, soft as ash, inside my kitchen. I set the pie on the counter and waited for the tears that never came. Instead, there was a kind of stillness, like the air right after a storm has passed. But before the sky clears, I looked at the clock at the empty plate waiting on the table and finally whispered, "That's enough." By sunrise, I knew exactly what to do. The next morning, she found the note I left and everything changed. 5 years earlier, this house still felt like a promise. The paint was fresh, the stairs newly sanded, and Marat stood in the kitchen downstairs holding her newborn son while Galen carried in boxes. "Just until we get started," she said. "We'll pay you back as soon as we can." I smiled, waving my hand. "You'll pay me back by sleeping at least 4 hours tonight. That's all I want." It wasn't charity to me. It was family. The duplex had been my late husband's last project, and keeping Merritt close made the quiet less painful. I cooked, babysat, paid the property taxes, and called the plumber when the pipes froze that winter. When Galen's job slowed, I slipped envelopes of grocery money under their door. No one talked about it. Kindness worked best when it wasn't tallied. The first shift came small. One evening, Marie asked if I could watch the baby while she attended a company dinner. "It's last minute. Mom, you're always saying you miss him." I said yes. Of course, I always said yes. But soon the dinners became weekends and the weekends became weeks. I learned her schedule through the notes she left on the counter. Always sign thanks instead of love you. When Galen's consulting work picked up, they replaced their old car. Then came a second, a sleek one that caught the sunlight like a mirror. I mentioned the new purchase lightly, pouring coffee. "You've worked hard," I said. Marriott smiled without looking up from her phone. "It's nice to finally breathe without worrying about money." I wanted to say you never really had to, but I didn't. Instead, I baked another pie that weekend, hoping the smell would pull her upstairs. It didn't. A year later, she told me, "Mom, we just need our own space." Her tone was polite but firm, like she was discussing a lease, not a bond. "Of course," I said, folding the dish towel in my hands. "That's what every mother hopes for." She hugged me, light as air, then turned to check a message. I stood by the window after she left, watching the new car pull out of the driveway, the same driveway I'd shoveled for decades. Somewhere between helping and holding on. I'd stopped being her home and become her convenience. When love becomes routine service, can it still be called love the night after Thanksgiving? I sat at the kitchen table with my phone the same way other people sit at confession. I called Merritt once, twice. Both times her voicemail answered with that cheerful, recorded tone. "Hi, it's Merritt. Leave it short, I did," I said. "Just wanted to make sure you got home safe." I made pie. My voice cracked on pie. An hour later, I sent a text. "Thinking of you. Hope the kids enjoyed dinner." The message showed delivered but never read. By morning, the silence had grown heavier than anger. I was rinsing the same coffee mug for the third time when I heard a knock. Odette stepped in without waiting to be invited. We'd been neighbors too long for formalities. "Murray still hasn't called," she asked. Setting down a grocery bag, I shook my head. "She will," Odette said, though her tone said otherwise. You're parenting an adult who's forgotten you're human. That's what happens when you make life too easy for people. She's not cruel, I murmured. No, Odette said, pulling out 2 cinnamon rolls. She's comfortable. Comfort makes people blind. I sat down opposite her. She said, immediate family only. That's what her message said. Odette looked at me, slow and sharp. And who gave her that family? Who paid the down payment on the house she calls hers? I opened my mouth, then closed it again. The truth was sitting in the drawer beside me. The file marked Deed and Taxes, edges curled from years of handling. I pulled it out, laid it on the table. Odette watched as I smoothed the top page. You thinking what I think you're thinking? I don't know what I'm thinking, I said. My fingers traced the faint ink of my late husband's signature, the one that had given me this roof and them their start. Odette leaned forward. Then start by thinking of yourself. She left the rolls on the counter when she went home. I didn't eat them. I sat there until dusk. The deed opened before me, the ink catching the dim light. Immediate family only, I whispered. Then this is immediate too. What boundary can hurt less than silence itself? By dawn, I had stopped trying to sleep. The quiet felt heavier than the dark, pressing against the walls like a secret. Waiting to be spoken, I made tea, sat at the maple table, and pulled out a sheet of stationery cream paper with a faint pressed flower border. It had been years since I'd written Merritt a letter. The pen felt strange in my hand. I started slow, every word measured. Merritt, I love you, and I want us to find a way back to respect before there's nothing left to save. I paused, staring at the ink. Then I wrote the rest, not as a plea, but as a boundary. I would like us to attend family counseling together within 30 days. I will schedule it if you agree. If we cannot do that beginning January 1st, you and Galen will need to begin paying rent for the downstairs apartment 2/3 of the market rate. This is not punishment. It is structure. Structure builds respect. I ended it the only way I could with love, not anger. Mom, I read the note twice before folding it. There was no heat in it, only steadiness. For the first time in years, my hands didn't shake. By 6 o'clock, the horizon had started to pale. I slipped into my coat, the letter tucked under my arm. The neighborhood was still half asleep. The only sound was the hum of a milk truck turning the corner. Merritt's porch light glowed faintly as I climbed the steps. I slid the envelope through the narrow mail slot, hearing it land softly on her table inside. The sound was small but final, like the closing of a long argument. I stayed there a moment, breathing in the crisp mountain air. For once, I didn't picture her reaction. I didn't imagine her anger or tears. I just watched the first light of morning slide across the roofs and thought of how still everything felt like a held breath before the truth arrives. Then I turned and walked home. The cold nipping at my fingers, my steps steady. When kindness gains a spine, who will call it cruelty? By afternoon, the knock came hard enough to rattle the doorframe. I had been expecting it since sunrise. When I opened the door, Merritt stood there, hair unbrushed, eyes wide and red. She held the letter in her fist, creased and trembling. Mom, please. No, her voice broke halfway through the word. You can't mean this. I do, I said quietly. You're punishing me, she shouted, stepping into the kitchen. Over one stupid night, you're really going to start charging us rent like we're strangers. I folded the dish towel I'd been holding and set it on the counter. I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting what's left of me. That's ridiculous, she said. You're acting like we're enemies. I met her eyes. You've treated me like an obligation for years. Maybe we both forgot I was a person. Merritt's breath caught. She looked toward the window as if searching for words that wouldn't come. We've just been busy, she muttered. We have our own lives now, lives built under this roof. I said I never wanted repayment. Merritt, just respect, she laughed once, sharp, nervous, and a rent bill screams, Respect to you! Before I could answer, Galen appeared behind her. His shirt was half tucked in, his face pale. Elizabeth, maybe we can talk about this calmly. I'm calm, I said. He rubbed the back of his neck. Look, we all said things we shouldn't have. Merritt didn't mean that comment. It was a bad joke. Marriott spun toward him. Don't take her side. I'm not, he said, lowering his voice. But we went too far. You know we did. She stared at him, stunned by his quiet. Then she turned back to me. You'd really do this? Force your own daughter to pay to live here? I took the letter from her shaking hand, unfolded it, and pointed to the final line. With love, not anger. I meant that then, and I mean it now. Merritt's mouth trembled. It feels like a threat. It's not a threat, I said. It's a mirror. I just want you to see what I see. For a moment, she said nothing. The clock ticked between us, steady and unbothered. Then she pushed the letter back toward me and whispered, "I don't even recognize you anymore." I reached for her arm, but she pulled away, tears shining in her eyes. Galen followed her out, closing the door softly behind them. The house was silent again, but it felt different now, like something fragile had finally cracked open. Will a line drawn in love ever be crossed with respect? The counseling office smelled faintly of lemon and paper. A small clock ticked above the framed certificates. Merritt sat across from me, arms folded, eyes fixed on the floor. Galen kept adjusting his watch band. The therapist, a calm woman named Dr. Carnes, waited until the silence settled. "Let's start with why we're here," she said softly. "You'll each speak in I statements, no accusations." "Just how you feel," Merritt sighed. "I feel pressured. My mother sent us a letter that felt like an eviction notice. It wasn't." I said, my voice even. It was a boundary. "Boundaries don't come with price tags." Merritt shot back. Dr. Carnes raised a hand. "Let's pause. Else, can you share how you felt that night?" I looked down at my hands, folded in my lap. "When I was told I didn't deserve the leftovers," I said slowly, "I felt disposable, like all the years I spent helping, loving, and showing up didn't matter. That's why I wrote the note. I needed to matter again." The words hung in the air, heavier than I expected. Merritt's shoulders tightened, but she didn't speak. Dr. Carnes turned to Galen. "What was that night like for you?" He hesitated. I laughed. He admitted quietly, "Not because it was funny, but because it was easier than starting a fight in front of the kids. I thought it would just pass." Merritt's head snapped toward him. "You could have told me it was cruel I did," he said, his tone careful. "You said I was overreacting." Dr. Carnes let the silence work again. Then she said, "Merritt, what do you hear your mother saying beneath the anger?" Merritt's voice softened almost unwillingly that I heard her. "And how do you feel about that?" She took a long breath. "I didn't realize how much of you I took for granted," she said finally. "You were always just there. I thought that meant you were fine." I nodded, not trusting my voice. Dr. Carnes slid a form across the table. 6 sessions, 1 every 2 weeks, and you'll finalize your new living arrangement in writing. Structure builds safety. Merritt picked up the pen, staring at the blank signature line. I watched the ink flow across the page as she signed her name slow, uncertain, but real. Can apologies on paper heal a wound made in public? 30 days can stretch or soften depending on how you spend them. Hours began stiffly. 3 chairs, 1 counselor, and a clock that ticked louder than any of us dared to speak. By the second session, Merritt no longer folded her arms. By the third, she looked me in the eye when she said my name. At home, the air began to change in small, almost invisible ways. She started knocking before coming upstairs once. She left a carton of milk on my porch with a note. "You mentioned you were out." The handwriting looked like her old birthday cards before the years dulled them. Galen came by one Saturday with a toolbox. "The porch rail's loose," he said, not asking permission, just kneeling to fix it. When I tried to thank him, he shook his head. I should have done it long ago. We still had quiet arguments about rent slips, about whether she should leave the children upstairs during sessions, but they no longer cut. They ended with softer words, sometimes even laughter. One night after counseling, she lingered by the door. "Mom," she said, voice low, "do you really think we can get back to how we were?" I took her hand, older and thinner now, but still warm. "No," I said, "but we can be something better, something honest." By the last week of the month, Asheville's maples had turned rust and gold. The city smelled of spice and smoke again, and everyone spoke of Thanksgiving plans. I decided to host my own version, a leftovers table for the neighbors who would otherwise eat alone. Odette brought soup. The widower hour next door brought cornbread. A college student from down the street arrived shyly with store-bought pie. We sat on the porch wrapped in blankets, the railing newly mended, laughter rising into the cold air. Near dusk, Mara appeared at the edge of the walkway holding 2 foil trays. She didn't speak, just set them on the steps and stayed a moment longer than necessary. I nodded, not inviting, not refusing, just acknowledging. She smiled almost to herself and walked back down the hill. I turned to the table where the soup still steamed and the company waited. Can warmth shared freely return the warmth once withheld by early evening? The porch was alive with small sounds, spoons against bowls, low laughter, the soft crackle of candles in glass jars. I ladled soup in a mismatched cups while Odette poured cider. The air smelled faintly of thyme and woodsome smoke. It wasn't a real Thanksgiving dinner, but it felt close enough. Across from me, Mr. Langley from next door told a story about his late wife's cranberry relish. The college boy laughed so hard he spilled cider on his sleeve. For the first time in years, the house didn't feel divided. It breathed. A car door shut down the hill. I didn't look right away, just kept stirring. The porch steps creaked, then a voice behind me said softly, "You still set the table better than anyone." I turned. Merritt stood there holding a foil tray in one arm and a folded paper in the other. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup, just tired eyes that looked like mine. "I didn't want to interrupt," she said. "You didn't," I told her. "There's always room." She hesitated, then stepped forward and set the tray beside the soup pot. "Turkey," she said. "From our dinner. There's plenty." The guests kept their voices low. Sensing something private unfolding, Merritt unfolded the paper with both hands. The corners smudged. "I wrote this," she said. "Dr. Carnes said I should try saying things out loud." She swallowed. "I was wrong to forget that you built the table I now sit at. I was wrong to make you feel small in a home you gave us. I can't undo it, but I can start being someone worth your love again." The paper trembled as she lowered it for a long moment. No one spoke. Even the candles seemed to quiet. Then I stepped forward and reached for her hands. "You don't have to earn what was never taken away," I said. Her breath caught and the words fell out in a whisper. "I miss you, Mom. I'm right here," I said. She hugged me then carefully, as if testing whether forgiveness would hold. It did. I felt her shoulders shake once, then settle. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet but steady. Behind us. Someone laughed again. The sound spread easily, like warmth spilling through open doors. Merritt smiled toward the table, then back at me. "Do you have room for one more bowl of soup?" she asked. "Always," I said. "When forgiveness tastes like leftovers, isn't that still a feast?" Weeks passed quietly, the kind of quiet that comes after a long storm when everything finally finds its shape again. Our last session with Dr. Carnes felt almost easy. Merritt sat closer this time, her hands unclenched. "I think we're done apologizing," she said with a small smile. "Now we just have to keep showing up." Dr. Carnes nodded. "That's all love ever asks." When we left the office, the air was sharp with winter. Galen handed me an envelope, our new lease. The numbers were modest, the agreement simple. I read it standing in the parking lot. 2/3 of market rate, he said as promised. "It's fair," I answered. "That's all I ever wanted." He smiled. "No, you wanted fairness and family. We're working on both." By the next Thanksgiving, the table upstairs was smaller, just us, the children, and Odette, who brought her famous sweet potatoes. The meal was plain and easy: soup, roast chicken. Pie cooled on the sill. No speeches, no performance, only gratitude spoken in the small ways. Marie taking my plate before I asked. Galen washing dishes without being told. As dusk settled, Marit followed me to the porch. "It looks different this year," she said. "So do we," I answered. I switched on the new brass lamp fixed above the steps. The light spread warm across the railing Galen had repaired months before. The engraving shimmered softly in the glow, built by boundaries, kept by respect. Merritt traced the words with her fingertips. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's ours," I said. The children laughed inside, the kind of laughter that doesn't echo, it belongs. I watched the glow spill across the yard and felt something settle in me, gentle and whole. I didn't fight for a seat. I rebuilt the table. When love finally learns respect, what else could it need to stay warm?